Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another very special episode of Candid with RMT. And today I have with me a senior from high school, and a close friend of mine, Shambhavi Singh. Hi Shambhavi, welcome to Candid with RMT. So we've been planning this for almost over a year now. Yeah, and finally managed to sit on this podcast. So here we are. Tell us about your journey from law school to where you are today, Shambhavi.
So I graduated in 2020. That was the COVID batch. So by the time our results actually came out and we were actually officially enrolled, it became 2020 end. So after that, my first job was as a law clerk to Justice Sanjeev Khanna, who is currently the Chief Justice. And thereafter, because I come from a bureaucratic family, I wrote UPSC a couple of times. I was never too inclined towards it per se, but it's just something that I wanted to do by virtue of being a part of this family. Thereafter, right, and during the course of my preparation also, I was working with Mr. Apurv Agarwal, who's currently the double AG of the state of UP. And after that, I didn't clear it. Like, I gave it a couple of attempts, I didn't clear it, and I wasn't inclined on writing it again altogether. Ever since, I have been associated with Ms. Devanshi Singh in the office of Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, which is where I've been working ever since, and the journey has been brilliant.
Well, that's quite interesting. Talk us more in detail about the clerkship part. If someone who's watching the podcast aspires to be a law clerk in the High Court or in the Supreme Court, what is the daily responsibility, duty, or what does a law clerk do exactly?
So, ever since even during law school, I always knew that I wanted to do one clerkship. The first clerkship that I had done was in the High Court with Justice Sangeeta Dhingra, and I absolutely loved that experience. So I knew that this is something I wanted to do at least as one of the jobs during the course of my legal journey. And after Justice Sangeeta Dhingra, I interned with Justice A.K. Sikri, where we worked together.
Right.
And so that just crystallized my wanting to go into this aspect, that just crystallized the fact that I really wanted to pursue one clerkship at least. Thereafter, I got really lucky because one of the clerks of Justice Khanna was leaving. She was my senior from law school, and she was leaving. Her duration, her clerkship period ended, and then she just asked me, because I was always so into it, she asked me whether I wanted to do this clerkship with them. So after that, I had to send out my resume, and because I had a couple of experiences having done the clerkship, I think that aspect helped. And thereafter, I was in a one month probation period. So at that point of time, the main responsibility that you have as a law clerk is you get a lot of files, okay, like the matters that are listed for the next day. So you have to read the files, you have to read the synopsis, the list of dates, the matter, everything, and you have to prepare a brief note for the judge, which some judges like to do it in person the way Justice Khanna did, so we would brief him in person. Otherwise, you have to prepare a one-page note so that the judge doesn't have to go through the entire file, and it can be a lot quicker considering the magnitude of cases that come before them alongside the judgments and all that they have to work on. So our main job was that aspect. Alongside that, we would research on the matters jinka judgment was supposed to be written, and our briefings luckily were in person. So that aspect of it, although it was really intimidating at the beginning because you were literally sitting out there briefing a Supreme Court judge, somebody I have so much respect for, who could have read the entire matter in 5 minutes, but then he liked it done in person because he would also give us his inputs regarding wherever we would mess up in the matter or whatever part of law we did not understand. He would actually give us an explanation. So it was a great learning aspect for me. And then the best part about something like a clerkship becomes that you end up dealing with so many different kinds of matters. Like at one end you have corporate matters, then you have matters related to the constitution, then you have election matters, then you have something to do with some civil matters, so administrative law matters, service matters. So every time you dig into the matters, you do a little bit of research, you go into the nuances of the law that are involved in that matter. So your learning on the whole becomes quite a bit, because if you were working with a particular office, they generally have an expertise with a particular kind of matters that they indulge in. But here you were dealing with all kinds of laws, so it gives a very good grounding and a very good, it becomes a very good base for your entry into this field, so as to figure out what is the kind of law that you like, or more importantly, what is the kind of law that you absolutely do not like. So, and briefing someone like him, you have to be very well prepared in order to be able to brief him. and then after that the discourse that we would have at that point of time with the judge, it just helped a lot.
Right. I mean, I remember my time doing a clerkship with Justice Saurabh Banerjee at the Delhi High Court, and I can completely relate to what Shambhavi is talking about, because we also used to prepare these brief notes on a daily basis, write those summary notes and research on those judgments, and then personally, we were also lucky enough to personally brief sir regarding the matters. It's quite a journey, and someone who's looking to make an active stride in the field of litigation, we would suggest to actually look out for a clerkship if given a chance.
I personally feel that it is something that everyone, especially first generation lawyers, it's something that everyone should do, because when you come from a legal family, you know, it's your dinner table conversation.
Yeah.
कि this kind of matter, इसमें ऐसे करना होता है, उसमें वैसे करना होता है, so on and so forth. But when you're a first generation lawyer, you need a place where you do all kinds of matters, and no place other than a clerkship can actually serve that purpose because of the simple magnitude of matters that there are. So you become, if nothing, you end up becoming very fast with reading the matters. Like when I had started, it would take me 2 hours to probably go through one file. Now that aspect has become a lot lesser, and by the time you reach like the judges, I remember once there was some holiday or Justice Khanna was traveling, and in the course of his car drive, or I don't know why he was traveling, like in that aspect, he managed to read all the 40-50 files that were listed for the next day.
Wow.
Which we would have not been able to do, divided between the 3 clerks also, which would have been a mammoth task. We would have not been able to do. So that aspect, which is one of the most important parts of it, to just be able to read the matter and identify the problem that there is in the matter.
Right. Moving on to your UPSC journey and then working with the AAG of the state of UP, you were also actively involved in mainstream politics, helping your uncle
Yes.
in the constituency of
Lucknow.
Sarojini Nagar in UP. How was that experience, and do you foresee yourself as a leader in bar politics or mainstream politics?
Okay, so I've, by virtue of coming from a bureaucratic family, I've always known that I want to be in the public aspect of things, in terms of that I've never had an inclination towards corporate law, which is something you and I have also had a conversation about multiple times, that I want to be in a place where I make a tangible difference into people's lives. But I had never really, honestly, by virtue of going to a school like UPSC, then being a student in Delhi University, you've never really seen the issues that people at the ground level face. And I think something like being a part of actively campaigning for my uncle during the elections, that was a major eye-opening moment, because you understand the issues that don't even come to our minds are things that actually exist for so many people. They, like a 2-time meal and running water 24/7 is their biggest aspiration of life. So these things made me realize that I want to do a lot more, not in terms of politics, like at least right now, never say never, but I don't think I'd see myself in politics. But I think law is one of the strongest tools to actually be able to, make a difference. Like in terms of right to education that came about, that was through a legal intervention, right? And so many other things like POSH, to cater to women's, rights in the work sphere, in the work atmosphere, that again was a legal intervention. So I want to make a difference, so to speak, not through politics, but through the legal intervention.
But ultimately serving the larger
serving the public, yeah, that is
at large.
Yeah, there are various roads to reach that end, and mine will not be through politics. I'd much rather do it through the legal intervention.
Right, and how is it your current space where you're working at Mr. Rohti's office?
It's wonderful. I mean, I've got just, being in the presence of a man of his level itself is wonderful. You get to learn so much by just observing, like during the briefs when we sit, just seeing the way his mind works itself is such a teaching experience, because it makes you understand, like, okay, you have to look at this aspect of law, also things that we would have probably missed out on in entirety, we wouldn't have even catered to. He picks up that one point. So I think it's also seeing the mind of a genius at work. So that itself has been such a brilliant experience.
That's nice. As a first generation female lawyer, Shambhavi, I know as a first generation lawyer how difficult it is to make a name for yourself in this cutthroat profession. What are the challenges and how do you overcome them as a first generation female lawyer?
So I think the biggest challenge out here becomes the fact that you don't have any avenue to even display your potential. As a first generation lawyer, our biggest, the way in that the closest analogy would be to something like Bollywood, and the way Siddhant Chaturvedi said that our struggles end the way at the point where their struggles start. So it's very similar that when you have a family member who's a senior lawyer or something of that sort, you automatically get cases. For us, the biggest task is getting the cases where you can even prove your worth. I think it becomes a little tougher like when you're a female lawyer, because there are certain blue collar criminal matters and all that people automatically do not trust you for, or you cannot possibly go to any random court and stuff like that because the entire environment is not good enough, by virtue of being a female. So that aspect, but I think the main thing actually ends up becoming getting the matter in the first place. But I feel like you have to actively go to court, network, and once you do a couple of matters, it's always about those couple of matters, and if you do it well, I feel like by word of mouth, your name starts spreading. So in the first month, in the first few months, which is my biggest fear also of going independent, that in the first few months there might be multiple days where you have no matter, but there will be a point where you will start getting those matters. And I feel like the adrenaline of having your own matter, when you're doing it from scratch, the learning is second to none because you put your heart and soul into that matter. But very task hota hai to get the matter in the first place.
Yeah. No, talking more about going independent, Shambhavi, what are the things that make you want to go independent, that push you, and what are the things that sort of stop you or pull you from, okay, let's give it another year, or two, and after that we'll go independent? Your 2 cents on that.
I feel like everyone wants to be their own boss. That is the main thing why people in any sphere, you want to become an entrepreneur, you don't want to work with someone else. The same aspect that if I were to go independent, whatever investment in terms of my time, energy I'd be putting in would be into making Shambhavi Singh, the brand, into my own name, vis-a-vis doing it for whoever else I'm associated with. So that becomes the biggest incentive to go independent. But the major other cons will obviously be the stability aspect. That as a first generation newcomer in the legal field, the monetary aspect is anyway very limited compared to your corporate jobs and all. But at least you still know that whatever that money is, it's still coming into your account on a monthly basis, and you don't have to stress about that aspect. Plus the fact that I had one independent matter recently, and although it was the smallest matter in terms of the significance of it, but that gave me sleepless nights because I was directly accountable in that matter.
Yeah.
If that was to go south, Shambhavi Singh messed up. It would affect I would have to deal with the clients, I would have to apologize. When you're working for someone else, although you have to deal with all the nuances ki, it doesn't matter, ye karna hai, wo karna hai, those things, but the blame does not fall upon you. So that becomes the accountability. Are you willing to take that accountability yet? Do you have that level of faith in yourself right now to be able to do a matter from scratch till the end? Because most matters out here in the legal field, in the medical field, in these fields, it actually ends up making a difference to people's lives.
Yeah.
Where it's not just about a quantum that you might have to pay, which was the case कि तुम कोई online product बेच रहे हो, क्या होगा उस आदमी का 500,000 रुपए, whatever the quantum of money, उसका नुकसान हो रहा है. Here it can be the difference between you not having any right in your child's life in a custody matter, or you end up losing out on a bail and being in prison for a lot longer. So it affects the life of a person. So the accountability is anyway moreover when you're directly responsible for it. So you have to have that immense faith and confidence in yourself. That part. So am I confident enough yet? Will I be able to take on that thing if a case were to come to me? Would I be able to literally take on that task on myself? That becomes a major issue. Then the stability aspect, of course, these are the major, these are the things that make you question whether you're ready for it at this point of time. And yeah, essentially that aspect. But again, being your own boss, and plus I feel like the learning that you would have in your own matters, when you get a matter, when you do it from scratch, is more than you can ever learn by, when you're working with someone, because वो तुम बार-बार हर चीज को क्वेश्चन नहीं करते, तुम्हारी खुद की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है उसमें, तो 1% चाहे वो कम रहता है compared to, so you're learning, you will dig into every last case law, every last section or whatever that can be involved in that matter, you will go out of your way when it's your own matter.
Yeah.
So your learning becomes more, but so the same things which are the pros also end up becoming the cons.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely relate to what Shambhavi is saying. I mean, it's like a swimming pool. You just dive in and you learn how to swim once you're in the water. Or you can probably take coaching and first learn how to paddle and float and then learn how to swim. There are two approaches, but in our profession, I think most of the big words who've made it have I think gone with the jumping into the pool and learning how to swim while.
But Raghu, I also disagree with you, because the ones who are the big stalwarts, so to speak, right now, they started at an age when law wasn't such a big field. The competition was infinitely lesser.
That's true.
So
That's
making
true.
it's something like saying, people who became big lawyers like 50, 70 years ago, a lot of them, of course, they were geniuses in their own right, but the benchmark was a little lesser. If you could speak English well, it would be enough to at least you wouldn't be like a stalwart, but then it would be enough to get your household income running.
Yeah.
Is that the criteria nowadays? No, because every third or fourth person is a lawyer. So the pool is a lot bigger right now. Why? I mean, it's not like UPSC or engineering or medical are the toughest exams that there are in the world. But why are they still deemed the toughest exams? Because of the number of people who apply for it. That is how the competition becomes so much lesser, which is why in the previous generations, the number of lawyers were a lot less. In our parents' generations, how many people are lawyers? Whereas in our batch, and law is something, another flip side is that कि engineering or medical, आप school के बाद कर सकते हो. Law आप life में किसी भी stage पे कर सकते हो.
That's true.
That also becomes an issue क्योंकि somebody who might actually be doing an MBA right now, आज से 10 साल बाद या 15 साल बाद, he might also be your competition because he's done his law.
That's
Are you getting it?
That's
so engineering and medicine का ballpark at least तुमको पता है कि हमारे batch में after this day and age there will be no engineering and medical competition. Law में तो anyone can. Tomorrow a brilliant engineer might end up becoming a lawyer, and he's also your competition just as much. That becomes the issue. So now the field is only so wide.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is not in our hands. I mean, it's destiny which plays an important role also in shaping all our careers.
But also on the flip side of it, I mean, I don't want to demotivate people out here. The fact remains that the number of pendency, if you simply see the number of pending matters that there are currently in the country, you will also realize that there are so many matters, so many people, like every family aaj ke day and age mein has some legal issue at some level happening. So if you're even an average lawyer, you can still make it. You don't have to be an Ambani to have, to be successful in life, right?
Yeah.
So you can, there are so many people, like a lot of my batchmates and all who started going independent. Yes, it is tough, but having said that, matters bhi itne aate hain logon ke that you will still have matters, you will still get those 2-3 matters on a weekly basis, and I think that should be the parameter of you going independent. Wherever the point at which you think that, okay, now I have these 3 matters that will come to me on a weekly basis, or 2 matters. That is when I think you can take the leap of entirely going independent, where those matters keep coming. That can be through a panel or probably writing the AOR exam, where people from I think that is, the AOR exam becomes important because that is how you can sort of dive into your native, your hometown, so to speak. Like if I'm from UP, I know that the day I write the AOR exam, there will be people who will probably give me their matters for filing in the Supreme Court because they cannot do it. Are you getting it? So that becomes the way. So I think the AOR examination really helps. That can be one of the bridges. Trying to get panels and getting your markings done, that also becomes an avenue to at least display your potential in that sense of it.
That's true. I mean, well said. I mean, when I also think of ways in which you can sort of make a name for yourself, there are very few, I won't say few actually now, but there are a lot of ways that you can do. I mean, starting your own YouTube channel, let's say.
Of course.
Networking out for these events, corporate events, so you can actively engage with law firms for an off-counsel.
But the flip side to this in our field, you can't even, it's illegal to even advertise your own legal practice.
Yeah, I mean, that is true.
So the nuances are so, I mean, it becomes so important to know how to tread along those lines.
Yeah. circumvent your way through.
Yeah, so like literally, like, you know, because at one point you can advertise for yourself, but like as a lawyer, like to get cases and all, you don't know what you might be doing wrong out there.
Yeah.
So it becomes tougher, but again, you're saying this very rightly that there are so many people who become prominent by virtue of their social media presence. You can start writing articles in newspapers, you know, that people get to know your name.
Yeah.
And that is all the public looks for, because sadly there have been so many fraudulent activities also in the legal sphere that a lot of people just want legitimacy. So whatever gives them legitimacy, like having your own chamber in a court, that gives legitimacy. Because client को पता है कि ये भाग नहीं पाएगा, उसका chamber यहाँ पे, we can find that person here. Writing articles in newspapers, that can give you legitimacy क्योंकि आपका brand name build हो रहा है. That is how people come to you. क्योंकि जितने लोग, the way we hunt for clients also want good legitimate lawyers. Nobody wants the biggest ones that there are. But people also want lawyers, you know. So you have to just be authentic to yourself and to the profession.
Yeah, stay true to who you are.
Yeah.
That's very important. Moving on to a PI in the Supreme Court in which you directly got involved. Talk us more about that, Shambhavi.
Yeah, so this was basically to do with mandating legal education in the country till the 10th grade. You know, like it should be one of the subjects that are taught to everyone, because sadly our country, the state of our country right now, people might be literates, but are they educated? They're not. People, like, you know, there are grown-up people who don't even know their basic fundamental rights. And that is something I feel that should, you know, the way you know your ABCs, you should know your fundamental rights. Because then nobody can fool you. You know that you can approach the court if this goes wrong with you. You know you can, जो पुलिस वाले आपके साथ बदतमीजी करते हैं, a lot of that will get, you know, it'll save you from that misery when you know your basic laws which have been made to protect you in the first place. So, you know, which is why something like this is as essential, it's as anything, you know, like as any form of education.
And how did that PIL go? Is it still?
No, I mean, it's been filed recently,
okay.
So we will see the outcome of it.
Fingers crossed. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Final question, Shambhavi. So far, this has been a very engaging podcast. What are the different advices that you have for the young generation who's listening to the podcast, who are just setting out, trying to make a name for themselves, are confused as to which chamber to join, who to associate themselves with, how to network? Just your 2 cents so far in your journey, which you can give to those young lawyers.
I feel like law is a profession where you have to be patient. You know, there is no overnight success out here. कि आपने एक एग्जाम क्लियर करा, आप एम्स दिल्ली में आ गए, it's that overnight success. That is not the case with the field like law. You have to give it time. You have to, like, you know, go 5 years are your testing period, so to speak. You have to give it that time, wherein especially in something like litigation, corporate and all I cannot say because I haven't really been involved in the corporate law aspect of it. But in litigation, you have to give 5 years to be able to understand whether this is something you like, because a lot of people romanticize the idea of it by virtue of Bollywood and all. The reality is very different. So whether you like the profession enough, whether you're willing to put in those hours for very less compensation, you know, so you have to give it 5 years before you officially decide कि अच्छा ठीक है ये मुझसे नहीं हो रहा है because I might not be good at it. No, you have, because there's so much to learn. What our law schools teach us is very different from the practical reality of things. तो 5 साल आपको देनी ही है. And secondly, I feel like the next generation will be full of specializations. You can't be the jack of all trades, you know, and succeed in our generation, that is. You have to figure out that one part of law that you really like. Or usme bhi you have to enter into the nitty-gritties of that. But so I think a good starting off point will be trying to join a chamber which sort of doesn't have a constricted practice into like one part of law, because then you won't be able to figure out what it is that you like or what you don't. In this aspect, a clerkship becomes a great avenue because you get to explore so many kinds of laws that if you don't figure out what you like, you'll definitely know कि ठीक है ये तो मुझसे होगा ही नहीं. जैसे बहुत लोगों के लिए, मेरे लिए था टैक्स लॉ, मुझे टैक्स लॉ पसंद नहीं है, so I know कि I will never look at something like that. So you know you have to figure out what it is that you like, and then you can have a more nuanced, like you know your next job can be more nuanced कि इस चीज में मुझे ये particular चीज पसंद है कि criminal में I like blue collar crimes, अब blue collar crimes में I like bail matters, bail में like you know this particular kind of it. Like there are lawyers nowadays who specialize only in the crosses. Are you getting it? तो इतना ज़्यादा स्पेसिफिक हो गया कि आपको पटियाला हाउस कोर्ट में अगर क्रॉस करवाना है इस particular kind of matter का, you go to X lawyer. So जब इतना, you know, it's become so narrow, you have to figure out at least on the broad spectrum कि पहले आप देखो criminal या जो सबसे बड़ा होता है criminal या civil aspect, उसमें आप फिर और अंदर जाओ तो, and that only happens when you give it time. 5 साल आपको कोई रिवॉर्ड नहीं मिलेंगे इस फील्ड में, बट यू हैव टू गिव इट, यू हैव टू बी पेशेंट फॉर दैट. एंड देन आई फील लाइक दिस फील्ड इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट रिवॉर्डिंग फील्ड्स दैट देयर आर, बिकॉज you know there's so much of a difference that you can make to the public, to the people in general. You are compensated very adequately after a certain point. There's no dearth of money. You manage to make a name for yourself. You have that power attached to it because you know nobody messes with a good lawyer. So you get everything in this field, but you have to just be patient. So just give it that time, you know,
so
as tough as it is.
That is the secret sauce, ladies and gentlemen, as I've often said, is patience. So be patient with the process, trust the process, and yeah, hopefully one day we'll all be great lawyers, you know, side by side each other in the Supreme Court or in the High Courts. Shambhavi, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on here.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.